I used to think my father was just an ordinary man. A quiet soul who wore sunglasses even when it rained. Ran a dusty little watch repair shop on the corner of Monroe Street. And made the best grilled cheese sandwiches when I came home from school. He rarely raised his voice. Never spoke of the past. And never missed a single birthday. To me, he was just Dad. Until the day I nearly died, and he disappeared. It happened on an ordinary Thursday. I was walking out of my university library in downtown Chicago. Earbuds in. Distracted by texts from my roommate. I didn't see him coming. A man I had never seen before drove a knife straight into my ribs. Twisted. And walked away like it was nothing. I collapsed. Blood soaking my blouse. Unable to scream. They said it was a mugging. A random attack. But I remember his eyes. Cold. Calculated. Familiar. Somehow. He didn't come for my wallet. He came for me. I woke up 3 days later in the ICU. Tubes in my arms. Machines beeping beside me. The pain was sharp. But nothing compared to the emptiness when I realized my father wasn't there. Not once during those days had he come. Not a call. Not a note. Nothing. I tried to reach him. Called every number. Asked every nurse. Went back to our apartment once I was discharged. The door had been kicked in. The watch shop. Cleared out. His closet. Empty. His phone? Dead. My father, Samuel Quinn, was gone. As if he'd never existed. A week later, I received a package. No return address. No note. Just a black box wrapped in newspaper. And inside, a 9mm pistol. Taped beneath it, in my father's handwriting, were 6 words, "Stay put. Don't look for me." That's when the real horror began. One by one, people connected to my case started vanishing. A nurse from the ER was found drowned in her bathtub. A police officer who questioned me about the attack, shot in the head execution style in his own home. A university staff member who walked me to my dorm the week before I was stabbed, dead in a car crash. Brakes cut. I told the police. I told them this wasn't over. That someone was covering up what had happened to me. But they looked at me with pity. Not concern. They thought I was paranoid. A traumatized girl chasing ghosts. But I wasn't chasing ghosts. The ghost was doing the chasing. I returned to our old apartment building in secret. Broke into our unit. And pried open the wooden floorboard under my father's bed. Something he always told me not to step on as a child. Hidden beneath was a metal box, sealed. Heavy. Humming with secrets. Inside, 6 forged passports with my father's photo and different names. A stack of foreign currencies. A flash drive. And a photograph. It was my father. Much younger. Standing beside a man in military fatigues. Both were holding rifles. Both were smiling. Behind them was a blood-splattered wall. And spray painted across it. In red, "Justice is never enough." That night, I realized. My father wasn't who he said he was. He wasn't just a quiet man who fixed watches. He was a killer, an assassin. And I wasn't just some unlucky college student attacked at random. I was a target, a message, a trigger. Someone had come after me to lure my father out of hiding, and they succeeded. Because now, he was hunting them back. The first body turned up in an alley behind a nightclub in Detroit. The victim was identified as Victor Orlov, an international arms dealer with ties to human trafficking. Shot clean through the temple. No sign of forced entry. No security footage. No witnesses. But on the wall, in blood, was drawn a tiny symbol, a clock, with no hands. The same symbol carved into the handle of my father's old workbench. That's when I knew, he had come back. But this wasn't just revenge. It was war. I started digging into everything I thought I knew about Samuel Quinn. I found nothing in national databases. No birth certificate. No military records. But I did find something buried in a declassified CIA document from 1993. A redacted name. An unnamed operative known only as Spectre. The profile matched my father's age, height, habits. Silent, deadly, ghost-like. Disappeared after a final mission in Eastern Europe, that same year. My mother died in a mysterious car explosion. I was 5. They told me it was an accident. Now, I wasn't so sure. 2 weeks later, I received another package. Smaller this time. Inside was a single photograph. It was me, taken from across the street. Standing at my bus stop. Wearing a red hoodie. On the back, in jagged pen, "You're still being watched. Don't trust anyone." And then, scribbled in red ink, "He knows you're alive." I dropped the photo. My hands shook. My skin went cold. Who was he? And why did he want me dead? The next night, I dreamt of my father. Not the quiet man I knew, but the one I had started to remember. The one with steel in his voice. The one who made me memorize escape routes and how to pick a lock using 2 hairpins. The one who trained me to disarm a grown man by the time I was 10, but told me it was just self-defense practice. I used to think he was being overprotective. Now I knew he was preparing me. I tracked his trail the best I could. Every week, another high-value target died. Each one had connections, to arms deals, to criminal cartels, to the organization known in whispers as the Black Rain, a multinational network of assassins, traffickers, and corporate mercenaries who made people disappear for the right price. One of those people, it turned out, had been my mother, and they wanted to make sure her daughter never uncovered the truth. One evening, I was ambushed. It was in the underground parking lot of my apartment. A man in a black jacket, face hidden, came at me with a syringe. I fought back the way my father taught me, elbow to the ribs, knee to the groin, grab the wrist, twist. But I wasn't fast enough. He sliced my arm open with a switchblade before he escaped into the night. As I bled out in my car, barely conscious, I remember whispering one word, "Dad." And when I woke up in a motel room 3 days later, my wound stitched perfectly, a bandage tight around my forearm, he was there. He sat in the chair beside my bed, face half lit by the yellow lamp, hair grayer, eyes darker. But it was him. Samuel Quinn, my father. He didn't smile, didn't cry, just stared at me with that familiar, unreadable calm. "I told you not to look for me," he said. "I didn't," I croaked. "They came for me." He nodded once. "I know. That's why they're all going to die." I wanted to ask so many questions. About Mom. About the Black Rain. About who he was, the one behind it all. But he raised a hand. "No questions. Not now. Not until you're ready." "Ready for what?" His eyes flicked to the corner of the room. "A duffel bag. A knife. A gun. A change of clothes. To finish what your mother started." He trained me every day. No more half-hearted practice like when I was a kid. This was war. He showed me how to fire a gun with both hands. How to identify different calibers just by sound. How to disappear in a crowd. How to kill. And yet, in the quiet moments, he was still Dad. He still made me tea when I had nightmares. Still put a blanket over me when I dozed off mid-practice. Still looked at me like I was the only thing in the world worth saving. Then one night, in the middle of nowhere, Nevada, he told me the truth. "Your mother wasn't just a lawyer. She was a whistleblower. She had evidence. Evidence that could destroy Black Rain." He handed me a flash drive. "She gave it to me before she died. I buried it. I hoped you'd never need it." My hands trembled as I took it. "What's on it?" His voice was hollow. "The names of every monster we've ever faced." Just then, a bullet shattered the window. My father shoved me to the ground. Gun drawn. 2 shots. Silence. We were compromised. They had found us. We ran, abandoned the motel, burned everything. The flash drive stayed in my pocket. My father said we had one chance, one location where the data could be decrypted without triggering a trace, an underground vault in Boston, run by one of his last allies, a man named Declan Hart. But there was one problem. Declan used to be Black Rain. We traveled by back roads, sleeping in abandoned cabins, avoiding any cameras or cell towers. My father had a route memorized. Safe houses buried in the woods. Buried caches of weapons and cash somewhere along the New York border. He finally spoke again. "They're not after you anymore," he said, staring into the night sky from our makeshift camp. "They want me?" I asked. He shook his head. "No. They want us both, because together, we're a legacy they couldn't erase." That word stayed in my chest for hours. Legacy. Not just vengeance. Not just survival. A legacy. We reached Boston under the cover of rain. Declan's base was hidden beneath a derelict steel mill on the outskirts, guarded by a retired sniper with one eye and a temper. But once he saw my father, the gruff expression cracked. "You're supposed to be dead," he muttered. My father shrugged. "Aren't we all?" Declan met us in a chamber deep underground, surrounded by servers that hummed like a living organism. He was tall, gaunt, and moved like a man who never stopped looking over his shoulder. "I've been waiting 15 years for you to show up," he said, staring at me. "Her mother was the only light in this damned world," he added, then turned to my father. "And you let her burn." My father's fist flew before I could react. Declan hit the ground hard. "Don't talk about her like you knew her," my father growled. Declan wiped blood from his mouth and chuckled. "Still got that temper." Then he looked at me. "You better be worth it." We plugged in the flash drive. Declan's hands flew over the keys. Encrypted layers. Military-grade firewalls. Deep trace trackers. But inside, buried deep in corrupted code, was a directory labeled Dawnfall. It was a kill list. Politicians, judges, police chiefs, CEOs, men and women who had orchestrated wars, toppled governments, trafficked children, laundered billions, and erased anyone who got in their way. On the list was the man who had tried to kill me. Vincent Rourke, billionaire, philanthropist, arms broker, and the Shadow King behind Black Rain. "You want revenge?" Declan asked. "He's the sun they all orbit around." My father didn't hesitate. "Where is he?" Declan smirked. "London. Private estate. Fortified like a fortress." My stomach dropped. "We'll never get close," I whispered. My father looked at me. "Then we don't get close." He turned to Declan. "We burn it down." The plan was insane. Even Declan thought so. But once the file was duplicated and set to go live, if anything happened to us, we had leverage. Rourke wouldn't kill us outright, not until he got that drive. So we baited him. My father made the call. "I have something that belongs to you," he said into the encrypted phone. There was silence on the other end. Then a familiar voice. Smooth like silk over venom. Well, the ghost speaks," Vincent Rourke said. "Let's talk." They met on neutral ground. A luxury suite in Geneva. But we didn't go there for peace. We went for blood. I stayed in the building across the street. Scope trained on the balcony. Declan on comms. My father walked in. Unarmed. Calm. The same way I remember him walking into my kindergarten class the day I broke my arm, collected. Calculating. Cold. Rourke smiled as if welcoming an old friend. "You've aged," he said. My father didn't smile. "You're still a coward." They talked for 20 minutes. Then Rourke made a mistake. He mentioned my mother and laughed. The bullet tore through the window before the laugh finished. Rourke dropped, screaming, blood soaking his pristine white suit. But it wasn't a kill shot. It was a message. We disappeared before his men could react. Plan B was already in motion. Rourke now knew we were coming. But he didn't know how far we'd go. Back in Boston, we went dark again. Declan funneled intel through the dark web, mapping out every security detail of Rourke's estate. I trained harder than ever: knife work, infiltration, disguise, and what to do if captured. Because my father told me one thing I couldn't forget. They won't kill you quickly. They'll use you, break you, and then they'll use your face to find me. That night, I looked in the mirror and wondered if I even recognized myself anymore. I didn't see the college girl who loved poetry and rainy days. I saw a soldier, a ghost's daughter, and soon, I'd become the thing they feared most. We crossed into the UK under aliases forged by Declan, new passports, new lives. I was no longer Lena Quinn. I became Elise Harper, a tech analyst from Canada. My father? Just another shadow. A man whose name hadn't been spoken aloud in over 20 years. But even with new names, the weight of who we were followed us like ghosts. Rorke's estate was a modern fortress nestled in the English countryside outside Ascot. Dozens of guards, infrared sensors, drone surveillance, underground vaults, panic rooms. He had buried himself inside a cocoon of concrete, steel, and fear. But my father had been studying this place for years, and he had a way in. The plan was simple. I would get invited. Rourke was hosting a charity gala at his estate. Hundreds of guests. Celebrities. Investors. Politicians. A perfect distraction. And among them, Elise Harper, the brilliant AI expert working on predictive threat modeling. A fake identity so convincing that Rourke's team actually requested a private meeting. I wore a black dress. Hair pinned high. Eyes cold. I looked nothing like the girl who used to cry watching romantic comedies on Sunday nights. I had become my father's daughter in every way. When I entered Rourke's mansion, I didn't tremble. I smiled. He greeted me like a king. Slick black suit. Drink in hand. Fake warmth in his eyes. Miss Harper. What a delight, he said. Kissing my hand. I could feel it then, the heat in my chest. The trembling fury just below my skin. This man had tried to kill me. Had orchestrated my mother's murder. Had hunted my father across continents. And yet I smiled back and said, "The pleasure is mine." The room was full of powerful people sipping champagne and pretending they weren't monsters. But I knew the truth. They were all part of Black Rain. While Rourke guided me through his art gallery, my father was already inside. Disguised as a caterer, he moved through the service halls. Unseen. Silent as smoke. Declan was on comms. Eyes on every camera. Feeding us intel. All guards are in place. Thermals show a blind spot behind the wine cellar. "That's your way in," he whispered in my earpiece. But then something went wrong. Declan's voice cut off. Static. Then silence. I froze. "Dad?" I whispered. My voice barely audible. Nothing. My heart thudded in my chest. Rourke was still talking. But I couldn't hear him anymore. I had seconds to decide, play along or vanish. I chose neither. I acted. I excused myself, found the bathroom, and slipped into the hallway. I pulled off my heels, ran down the corridor, pressed the hidden latch under the staircase, the one my father showed me on the blueprints. It opened. I descended into the dark, gun tucked into my garter, heart pounding. The wine cellar was empty, at first. But then I saw it. Blood. A trail leading to the steel door at the end of the corridor. I followed it, hand trembling around the grip of the pistol. And then, I found him. My father. Kneeling. Bound. Bleeding from a wound to his side. And in front of him, Vincent Rourke. Smiling. "Well done, Elise," he said. His voice soaked in mockery. "You led him straight into my hands." My fingers clenched. I pointed the gun. Rourke didn't even flinch. "You think this is a movie, sweetheart?" he sneered. "You think one bullet fixes decades of blood?" I could barely breathe. "Let him go." Rourke stepped closer. "You're brave. Like your mother. Do you know how long she screamed?" The rage that burst from me was like fire. I pulled the trigger. Rourke's shoulder exploded in blood. But he didn't go down. Chaos erupted. Guards stormed in. My father lunged, disarmed one of them, shot two others. I ducked behind the barrels, firing blindly. My father shouted, "Run!" I screamed back, "Not without you." But he looked me in the eyes, and I knew this was his end. He grabbed a detonator from his jacket. "Go, Lena. Now." "No, this is my legacy," he said. "You are my legacy." And then he pressed it. The explosion tore through the chamber. The ceiling collapsed. Fire swallowed the room. I was thrown back into the corridor, ears ringing. mouth full of dust and screams. I crawled, bleeding, crying. Alive. But he wasn't. Samuel Quinn died in that fire, just like my mother. Both of them consumed by the war they never started, but vowed to end. The story should have ended there, but it didn't, because Vincent Rourke survived, badly burned, but alive. And now he wanted revenge on me. They buried my father's name in silence. No news reported the explosion at Rourke's estate. No police arrived. No questions asked. Black Rain had cleaned it up, erased everything. All except me. They didn't realize I'd survived. And for the first time in my life, I was truly alone. I vanished into the underground, guided by the last message my father left on a hidden flashcard Declan had smuggled into my gear. It simply read, "Trust no one. Finish it." I followed his backup plan, burned my fake ID, stole a passport off a drunk in Prague, and made my way to Istanbul, where a woman named Sarah awaited me. She didn't ask questions. She just handed me a knife and said, "You're his daughter." That means something. For months, I trained harder than ever. Sarah taught me the art of misdirection, of poison, of vanishing in a crowd. She was a master in psychological warfare. She made me memorize every scar on Rourke's face, every known contact he had left, every offshore holding he touched. One by one, I took them down. A logistics kingpin in Hong Kong, found strangled in his penthouse. A corrupt ambassador in Berlin, heart attack staged with a neurotoxin. A hedge fund CEO in Manhattan, his car brakes cut on a mountain pass. Every death carried a signature my father once used. A clock. No hands. Black Rain began to panic. And Rourke, he went into hiding. But I knew where he would go. There was only one place he'd feel untouchable. The vault. Buried beneath a decommissioned NATO bunker in the Swiss Alps. The vault was his final fortress. Unlisted. Unmapped. Guarded by a dozen ex-mercenaries with no names. I knew I'd die trying if I rushed it. But I didn't rush. I planned for 117 days. And on the 118th, I went in. I disguised myself as a delivery tech for a military drone contractor, one of the few vendors allowed through the upper checkpoint. I used biometric gel pads to spoof the security scans, memorized every blind spot in the surveillance system, and injected a silencing mist into the air vents that knocked out the entire left wing's security team. When the door opened into the central chamber, I was already inside. And he was waiting. Vincent Rourke looked like death, skin blistered from the explosion, one eye white and lifeless. His left hand burned to the bone and replaced with a titanium prosthetic. But he still smiled when he saw me. "You look just like her," he rasped. "You even walk like him now." I said nothing. I just raised the gun. "You think this ends with me?" he asked. "You think killing me changes what you are?" "No," I said, voice steady. "But it ends what you made me." He lunged. I fired. Twice in the chest. Once in the head. Rourke crumpled to the floor. Just like that, the monster who haunted my family for decades was gone. I stood over him in silence. No tears. No triumph, only a strange, crushing emptiness. Because revenge doesn't heal. It just finishes. I walked out of the vault alone. No one stopped me. No one followed. They knew what I had done. And they let me go. Because in that moment, I became something more dangerous than a killer. I became a legacy. Months passed. I moved from city to city, never staying in one place too long. Sometimes I'd see headlines of criminal syndicates collapsing, political scandals erupting, dark money trails exposed. All traces of the data my father left behind. I'd left it in Declan's hands before the final mission. He uploaded it to every watchdog group across the world. My parents' war was over, and the truth was finally free. One night, in a quiet village on the coast of Portugal, I found an old watch on a market table. Rusty. Broken. Its hands missing. I bought it anyway. Went home, sat on my porch, and started to fix it. Because for the first time in years, I could finally breathe. Final lines: "My name is Lena Quinn. My father was a ghost. My mother, A light they tried to extinguish. They failed. I survived. And now, I live in the space between shadow and silence, watching, waiting, because the world doesn't need another assassin. But it will always need someone who remembers.